from the mostly right-wing media, let's call it like that. One idea that multiculturalism is a kind of old and faded idea, and they're talking more and more about the melting pot, American melting pot option. What about that? Like, is there anything true in that statement?
I think the melting pot is a terrible idea. I think it doesn't fit Canada. I think Canada is being the example and the solution for the world by showing we can get along even though we're very different. That we define our identity by values, not by background or skin color or anything else. And to try and pretend that somehow all Canadians can become a melting pot is not understanding Canada in its, not just its recent history, but its entire history. Canada was built on a fault line between French and English, heavily influenced by the Aboriginal Canadians who showed the French and the English how to survive in this country that was too big and too cold. And a big part of that surviving was being open to others and learning and being there for your neighbors. So we have a country that, even though it was built on these fault lines, from the very beginning couldn't define what a typical Canadian was or looked like. And every succeeding generation and wave of immigration has shown different Canadians who look different but who all share the same values. And I think that focus on values is something that is contrary to the melting pot, where everyone's supposed to look the same and sound the same and consume the same kinds of cultural elements. And yes, there are things that bind Canadians. I mean, most of us love hockey. Most of us enjoy maple syrup or don't mind the winter too much from time to time if we're properly dressed for it. I mean, there are things that bind us together, but I will tell you, multiculturalism as it was defined 40 years ago is no longer the multiculturalism that applies today. Multiculturalism 40 years ago was getting people to tolerate differences, being a country of tolerance. Absolutely, and 40 years ago we needed a little tolerance. We needed for people to understand that it was okay to have neighbors of different backgrounds moving into your neighborhood. It wasn't something that was scary. I'm sorry, we've moved a long way forward from them. We've gone away from putting up with people despite their differences to being actually embracing them. How many schools in the Toronto region or across the country where everyone of every different background celebrates the Diwali festival? How many different communities know what Ramadan is and respect it in its articulation and understand that this is realities that different communities are going through? There is an understanding that well, you could either say there is no mainstream anymore when you think of sort of the white Canadians, but you could actually say that the mainstream is now what you see around this room and what we see in our cities. So yes, multiculturalism is an old idea that has evolved, but it's evolved into something absolutely extraordinary.